Hi everyone, my name's Anne-Marie. Welcome to this how-to guide. In this episode we're going to have two great techniques. So we're going to be using my brand new seasonal cluster stamps. I'm going to be using the autumn stamps in this guide. And I'm going to show you not only how to stencil and use stamping over the top of stenciling, but I'm going to show you how to elongate your sentiment so that it's more continuous, because you might want it longer for your card front. So the first thing that you're going to need is your rubber stamps. The second thing you're going to need is some black Stays On ink, or whatever you're happy using. I prefer the Stays On black ink. I'm also going to be using distress ink and a blending tool. I'm also going to be using a stencil. My stencil's well loved and it's a little bit stained. It's just a dotty stencil and it gives you a good effect of how you can stencil in your backgrounds. So the first thing that I need to do is to take a piece of the stamping cardstock. So this is the smooth cardstock. I'm also going to take a piece of scrap paper and I'm going to place my cardstock on the scrap paper, and then I'm also going to take an ink and blending mat and I'm going to slip that underneath. So I've got 3 layers. Now the scrap paper is because I'm going to start turning my card and I just want a good slip on it, and I'm not going to ink and blend on the mat until I've stenciled in the centre, and then I'll take the scrap paper away. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you've got a better view of the whole of my cardstock. I'm going to position my stencil on the top of my card through the centre. Now if I was an advanced crafter, I would be using masking tape to mask down the stencil to stop it moving. I'm not going to do that because I want it kind of random. So if it slips a little bit, I'm happy. I am not going to get distressed over it, for want of a better word. And talking of distressed, I'm using the Distress Ink Crushed Olive for the background. Now my stencil is kind of dirty and I haven't cleaned it, especially for this technique, because I want it to try and pick up some of the extra colour that's on there. So I'm going to go in with my blending tool. I've just simply run it across the top of the ink pad and I'm going to start at the top and I'm just going to make gentle circular movements, and then when I'm happy I'm going to start just moving down the stencil. I am keeping hold of the stencil. I'm going to go back for some more ink and come back and circle the stencil. Now the more you go over it, some places will be deeper than others in the colouring, which is absolutely fine. So now I've taken my hands off it. This is the danger point. If you don't tape it down, it might move. But I'm going to just go back in there and blend again. And then I'm going to pick my stencil up and I'm going to move it down because I want the stenciling over the entire page. So I'm just going to marry up some of those dots like that so that I can keep stenciling all the way down. I'm not taking the blending tool over the edge, I'm keeping it in the centre, and I'm putting more pressure on some places than others, like that. There we go. And I think that will just about do it. So I've got a nice dotty background. I can put my blending tool to one side We do want that again for the end. Now we're going to stamp on top of this. So I can take away my blending mat and my scrap paper, and I can bring in my stamping mat that you'll have seen me use many times. I'm using the main Autumn Sentiment stamp from the Autumn Clusters. I've already got it on a block, and I'm going to use my scrap paper just to stamp an image on top to check how we're stamping today, because I don't know if we're going to stamp well or if we're not going to stamp well. Hopefully we're going to stamp nice and sharp, nice and clear, and my ink is playing even though I need to re-ink it, so there's my excuse straight away. So light tapping motion with my ink pad, take my scrap paper, press the stamp down like we did in the guide, and that's not too bad. So we can go ahead and ink it up again and then stamp over the top of our stencil area. Light tapping motion with our ink pad, and hopefully lots of ink on there. There we go. And we can take our stenciled card front. Now I'm just going to turn it so I can see it. I'm going to turn my stamp over, and because it's clear I can see exactly where I'm going to stamp, and I'm going to position it over the centre of the stenciling that we've just done. I'm going to press it down nice and firmly and then peel it away, and we've got a really gorgeous image for the centre of our card. Now you might want to extend the image, you might not. This bit might be the only bit you want to use. You might want to cut it down, make it smaller, but I want to extend the actual leaves to the bottom and to the top. So I've taken the small cluster and I'm just simply going to test it on our scrap paper to make sure that it's going to give us a nice clear stamp, and it does. So we can go right ahead and stamp onto our card to elongate our stamped image. So I'm going to head to the top first, and I'm going to go up this side. So I'm going to take my image and place it there. Now this is why they're clusters, because you can do so much with them. I'm going to ink the image again like that, and then I'm going to stamp again to the top, just at a different angle like that, and over the edge like that, and then I'm just going to stamp another little bit in that section, and I think we will just turn that round so I can see it, and we'll stamp it, take the stamp upside down like that. So now we've elongated the top. We can do the same to the bottom. Now if you can imagine using this on a DL card or in a journal or on a scrapbook, it would just look so cool, it really would. So I've inked up my stamp again, and I'm at the bottom, and I'm going to just turn it this way, and that's our first stamp. Now you see how as it goes along the stamp better and better. It's like your stamps warm up. They don't, but it's just like they warm up, or you do, and it just, the actual image just looks so cool. So now we're going to go this way a little bit, and then I think a final one sweeping this way. We could go upside down, we could go side by side. It's how I've designed them. It doesn't really matter. We'll take it slightly on an angle. There we go. So we've elongated the image. We can use as many or as few of the cluster stamps as we like. I'm going to go back in there and add the actual leaf on its own, just in 2 places. So this hasn't been used, hasn't this stamp? So I'm just going to prime it by tapping it with the ink and then stamping twice onto scrap paper, and one more for luck. There we go. So now in 2 places I'm going to just add one of the extra single clusters, which you can do. I'm going to add one here. There we go. And then I'm going to add one at the top. There we go. And just at an angle. And there we go. So we've elongated our design so it will fit any size of card, or you can make it fit any size of scrapbooking page. I'm going to finish it with a blending technique around the edge, just to bring the edges in. So really for this, not have you got 2 techniques, you've got 3. So we're blending the edges as well, and it just brings the eye into the centre of the design. Now you can go as hard with the blending as you like to get the depth of colour, or you can go as light as you like. And I'm going to do top and bottom first, and that's not for any particular reason, but I want the top and bottom a little bit darker than the sides, because as I say, it brings the eye in. So we're just using circular motion on our blending mat to bring the colour in. And even though I'm using the same colour as the colour that I've used for the stencil, you can see how it's sweeping over it and it just all tones in. So I've actually only used 2 colours. I've used the permanent black ink and I've used the distress ink, that is crushed olive, just to create this. So it's just bringing those edges in now and bringing that corner in, and that to me is finished, ready to be mounted on top of a card. How gorgeous is that, and how easy. Just a few simple steps from following on from the stamping to do the repeat stamping to elongate the design using the gorgeous cluster stamps. And I must say, I really think there's 1,001 things you can do with the stamps, and this is a gorgeous idea, so I hope you've enjoyed it. Please check out the other how-to guides on the website, and you can always find me on social media, and I'd love to know what you think. So I would just like to say thank you so much for watching. I shall see you next time.